So this was 2008, and I had just graduated from Harvard Law School. I was working at the top law firm in Chicago, and I had just done a reality show called I Love New York 2. This prompted me to make the biggest decision of my life, and I quit the law firm to go and pursue professional wrestling. Now, how does one get into professional wrestling, right? The answers are a lot easier now because there's such things as the Performance Center, but back in 2008, that didn't exist. So how would one go about getting into professional wrestling? Well, I Googled it. I read somewhere that in order for WWE to even give you an audition or even consider you, you need to have about 5 years of wrestling experience. At this point in time, I had 0, but it was just something I felt I would be good at. Like it was almost like it was calling me in a way. So I started looking up professional wrestling schools and there weren't any. So I'm like, well, how does somebody train to become a professional wrestler? Like, where are these places? Because clearly they exist somewhere. And back at this time, getting into the business was very secretive. Like you had to know somebody or be second generation. So they made it really difficult. But somehow I was able to get a lead, and there was a wrestling school in California. It was called UPW. I'm pretty sure that's the same school that John Cena went to, I believe. I've heard Samoa Joe pass through there. So the guy who ran it was a gentleman named Rick Bassman. I remember I called and nobody answered, so I left a voicemail. I waited a little while. I remember I called again. I didn't get anything. So I kind of thought that was just going to be a dead end. And then, to my surprise, sometime in June 2008, I remember being in Turks and Caicos, my girlfriend at the time, and I get a phone call from Rick Bassman, UPW. I pick it up, and he tells me that he's a producer on a new reality show centered around Hulk Hogan, and it's going to be teaching celebrities to wrestle. The name is something like Hulk Hogan Celebrity Wrestling, Hulk Hogan Championship Wrestling, something like that. Anyway, he asked me if I'd be interested in being in this Hulk Hogan wrestling show, and I'm like, yeah, because this is how I'm going to get into WWE. And he called me back a few days later, and he's like, David, I'm really sorry, that spot got taken. And so just in hearing this, I'm crushed. Like, oh man, another dead end. But then he asked me, hey, have you ever thought about trying out for WWE? I'm like, yeah, man, that's what I want to do. That's why I was going to do the Hogan show. Yes, that's my goal. And he's like, oh, well, you don't need to do the show for that. He's like, I can just get you an audition. I was like, man, this is awesome. Wait, hold up. I don't have any wrestling experience. And he was like, don't worry about it. It's like, I'm pretty sure with your look, your story being a Harvard-educated lawyer, they'll be interested. Bassman told me that somebody from WWE would be reaching out to me. And sure enough, a gentleman by the name of Ty Bailey eventually reached out to me, and we talked briefly, and he said that he would like to fly me to SmackDown, which was taping in Houston, Texas, to meet me in person, and that we would go from there. Let me just tell you, the great thing about lawyers is they always keep receipts. And I happen to have that exact email right here. I'll show it to you, but it's got his personal information on there. It says, David, great speaking with you. Here's my cell, call or text anytime. Holly Fisher will make the necessary travel arrangements. And Holly was the travel lady. She used to book all of our flights at the time. Super nice. Anyway, it says right here, Holly, we will be flying David in on the 24th to Houston, Texas from Chicago. Please reserve a car in his name. They weren't messing around, but please reserve a car in his name, David Otunga. Yeah, thanks. And this was dated June 12th, 2008. My memory is really good. I'm impressed with myself. So WWE flew me to Houston, Texas on June 24th for a SmackDown taping. And I remember this so vividly. Like, I showed up to the arena not knowing what to expect. And I walked in backstage and I was looking for talent relations before I even got there. Like, I walked through the door and I heard somebody yell behind me, "Yo, Punk!" I turned around and it was Shad Gaspard from Crime Time. And he knew who I was, clearly, from I Love New York 2, but we just instantly clicked. I walked through the door and we were cool. And he was like, hey man, let me show you around. And he took me to talent relations. Looking back, that was really cool of him to do. He didn't have to do that at all. And, you know, like I've seen people come for tryouts before and nobody shows them around. Like they always are, you know, nervous and not knowing where to go. So because Shad did that for me, I always made sure that I was always cool with the local talent who came in or people coming in for tryouts or whatever, and just tried to be helpful. We lost Shad not too long ago, and, you know, just thinking of him, rest in peace, bro. Shad takes me into talent relations and I meet Mark Carano for the first time. Oh, Carano. The very first time I met Mark, I've never even told this story. The very first time I met Mark Carano, he tried to set me up. So I come in there and mind you, I have no idea what I'm going to be doing there. I don't know if this is the tryout or what. And so he tells me that, you know, just to hang out for a little bit and go to catering. And then he was going to introduce me to his boss, Mr. John Laurinaitis, who would eventually become Big Johnny. And this was going to be the first time I met John Laurinaitis. But anyway, still in the talent relations office, Mark Carano puts me on the spot and he's like, well, who are your favorite wrestlers right now? So I'm thinking, and this is SmackDown, so I know Batista's on there. And I always really liked Batista, so I was like, oh, Batista. And then Carano's like, oh, Dave's here. And he goes, we'll have to make sure you get a picture with him or something later. Carano is saying this. And I'm like, okay. Then I go to catering. Shad takes me to catering and I meet JTG and we click instantly. And this is the first time I've ever been in catering backstage at WWE. And it was great. Like they had a real spread. Like it was impressive. They had, you know, all kind of vegetables. They had chicken. I think they had prime rib that day also. And so I went in and sat down in there and they had a monitor up and the show from, I think it was Raw was playing actually. So Raw from that past Monday was playing. And then, you know, different wrestlers just started filing in and I thought it was awesome. In walks Ric Flair. And this is awesome because I get to meet Ric Flair for the first time. And what was so cool about it is he did not disappoint. Like, that's really him. This is not a gimmick. Like, yeah, he's everything you see on TV. I ended up going back into talent relations to check in. And, you know, Carano had already suggested to me that I get a picture with Batista before. So having just seen Ric Flair, I say to him, oh, Mark, also, by the way, I would really like to get a picture with Ric Flair. And he goes, what? You can't do that. No. We don't do that kind of stuff here. Sorry. And I was kind of shocked because like he kind of like snapped back at me, like it made me feel like I was a mark or something. I'm like, wait a minute. You just put me on the spot, asked me who my favorite wrestler was at the time, and I know it's SmackDown, so I said, oh, Batista. Oh, he tells me, oh, well, you should get a picture with Dave. This is out of Carano's own mouth, right? So then 15 minutes later, I say, hey, you know, if I'm already getting a picture with Dave, I would love to get a picture with Ric Flair if that's possible. And now you're making me feel like a mark for asking about that? Like, I don't know what he was trying to do, but this always stuck out to me because I remember thinking, you're the one who brought up pictures. I was never going to ask for a picture of anybody. But Mark Carano told me, hey, make sure you get a picture. So I spent most of the time in catering when I first got there and just talking to, you know, all the wrestlers. And, you know, a lot of people knew me from I Love New York too, it was really cool because here I am meeting these guys I've seen on TV for the first time. And then a lot of them knew who I was. I'm going to tell you who really surprised me, that recognized me. I could not believe it. Tommy Dreamer. Now, hey, Tommy Dreamer is awesome. And he just wasn't the guy that I expected to watch I Love New York too. But he knew it. Not only did he watch it, he knew who I was and he knew about my Harvard background. So I was like, yo, he really watched. So shout out to Dreamer. And that really stuck out to me. It was really cool how Tommy talked to me and it was so impactful. I still remember that to this day. Yeah, and he was another guy who was just nice to me that day, which was really cool. I met Shelton Benjamin for the first time. I believe it was that day too, backstage, just briefly. And, you know, just talked to him and he was really cool because then fast forward in the future, when I came back, one of the first times they brought me on the road, Shelton ended up showing me around. It was really, really cool to me, but I'll talk about that in an upcoming video. Then Shad says, hey, let me take you out to the ring. I'm like, okay. I mean, Carano told me to wait in catering, but hey, why not? Shad's like, I need to take you to meet Johnny Ace. And I'm like, okay. Shad takes me out to the ring, and this was cool. This is my first time going ringside like before the show. And all the wrestlers were in there just kind of lounging, which was surprising to me. By the way, Rey Mysterio was there without his mask on. And I was like, oh man, like that made me feel really special. Like, yo, this is like a highly restricted area. I'm back here. And I got to meet Rey too, who was super dope. He was cool from the first time I ever met him. But that made me feel important because I got to meet Rey like with his mask off, and I was like, yeah, I will be part of this. So my first interaction with John Laurinaitis was actually pretty brief, but Shad brought me out there, and I walked up the ring steps and onto the apron. This is my first ever time stepping into a WWE ring. We said hello. He complimented my physique, asked about my background, and then he asked me why I wanted to do this. And I remember telling him that, honestly, this has been my dream since I was 6 years old. And life took me in another direction. And I ended up going to Harvard Law School and then getting a job at the top firm in Chicago, where I was working until I left to pursue professional wrestling. So I was explaining to him how this is my goal. Like, I'm putting everything into this. I pushed all my chips in, and this is what I want to do. And he didn't say much. And he just, kind of nodded his head. And he was like, all right, kid, I'll tell you what. I'm going to send you down to Tampa, Florida to our developmental school, FCW, and we're going to see what you can do. He said, it's going to be a week-long tryout just to see how you move around and if you can pick things up. And I said, great, I'll do it. And that was it. That was the interaction. I walked down, and then Carano was there now, waiting for me. And, he was telling me, oh man, that seemed like it went really well. Okay, good. So he's like, all right, well, you could stick around and watch the end of the show. So I did. And I went back to catering and sat in there and watched the show. I went out, I remember going out kind of backstage and watching the show like on the side. And that was really cool, just being able to be at a WWE event, SmackDown taping, but behind the curtain, behind the ropes, like for the first time as a worker. Well, even though I wasn't a worker, but part of WWE as opposed to being a fan. So after that, I flew home, and then they sent me travel.